All right, so this is going to be part 4 of my Microsoft Sentinel lab demonstration. And in this video, I specifically wanted to talk about log analytics rules. So the way that you would access analytics rules here in the Defender portal is you would go under Microsoft Sentinel, under configuration, and then you will go to analytics. As you can see, we are already here. And as you can also see, I do have a few rules here already, but the one that I specifically want to look at is let's see. Actually, this might be the wrong workspace, and it is, in fact. Yeah, so let me change to the correct workspace because I do have two different Sentinel instances I've been working out of. So we will focus on the one that just says Sentinel workspace here. So switch. And then under active rules, we should see a couple of rules, and specifically the one that I want to focus on is this one here, which is one that I made recently. And it's essentially what it's trying to do is target any sort of unauthorized domain controller login attempts. Now, I have two domain controllers that this rule is currently attached to, but for the purpose of the video, what I want to do is just focus on the rule logic. So what I will do is go on ahead and click on edit here. As you can see, I've got the name for a rule, pretty short and sweet. Short description, the severity, MITRE attack. But what we really want to focus on is the rule logic here. And so as you can see, I have a KQL query here that's essentially saying any account name that is not administrator and is a part of two domains. So the MacEddy 2022 domain, which is a domain that I created for a separate home lab that I decided to add to Microsoft Defender, really just for the fun of it. I did mention that in previous videos as well. And then of course the eCourt domain, which I also mentioned in previous videos. So essentially any account that's not an administrator and is a member of these two domains, as well as where the device name isn't or is this domain controller and this domain controller. So essentially it is going to log any sort of login attempts, whether they were successful or non-successful, to the two domain controllers that I have. And so one way that we can go on ahead and test this is I actually have one of my domain controllers open right now that I'm going to try and log into with an account that isn't an administrator account, or specifically the administrator account, because there's only one admin account currently for each domain controller. So but before that, I wanted to also take a look at the query scheduling. So I have it currently set to run the query every 8 hours and look up data from the last 8 hours. So what I'll do is, for demonstration purposes, I'm actually going to alter this to 5 minutes. So we'll change that to 5. And then for lookup data, we can do, let's just do from the last 24 hours. Granted, 8 hours should be fine based on the logic here. So be able to do 24 hours. And I would say really that makes up the majority of what the analytics rule is all about. I do also have some entity mappings here. So IP and account entities, the address, as well as whether the account is a local admin or not, as well as the accounts, the full name of the account, and the account name, which essentially full name of the enter ID account, as well as the account name that will fall under directly based on the believe it's the display name attribute in on-premises Active Directory. So beyond that, um, yeah, got a few incident settings that I have configured: create incidents from alerts triggered by the analytics rule. Don't want to be cluttered with alerts that are triggered from the same incident. So let's see what else. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. So what I'm gonna go on ahead and do is submit the changes that I just made for the rule frequency. Click save, and then I'm going to switch over to my domain controller here and then log in as what we'll do is I'll use the John Doe account, since it's not an administrator account, and it should be sufficient enough to go on ahead and trigger a alert for this particular analytics rule. So All right, here's my domain controller. And then what I'll do is go on ahead and log into it or attempt to. All right, we'll go to other user here. Username should be jdoe. And if I can remember the password, either way, even if I don't remember the password, what it should do is um, log the attempt to log in just because it's not an admin account. But yeah, password is incorrect. I'll try one more time. Okay, that might work. All right, yeah, it looks like that's working. So, yeah, in this particular case, what we should see is a success and a failed attempt. And what I'm going to do now actually is pause the video and then I'll come back in another 5 minutes just so I can show you that the login attempt was registered by the analytics rule and it should trigger an alert. So I will be back in 5 minutes. All right, so now we're in our incidents page here, and what we will do is go on ahead and click on the incident ID, which has the most recent update, which really should be this one. As you can see, there are 3 accounts involved here, and the John Doe account should be one of them. If it is not, then there is something wrong with my analytics rule, but I've pre-tested this, so it should populate. As you can see, we have an alert here for 3 user accounts. It looks like the John Doe account is there. Now there are 2 other accounts there, and I believe that AD Sync account is actually a local account managed by Microsoft for any devices that have AD Interconnect installed on there, and it's probably used for various purposes, such as maybe managing the synchronization service or something like that. But honestly, I'm not too familiar with what those accounts would be used for. But I do know that I have no idea what the password for those accounts are. So, and if I really wanted to filter this out of the analytics rule, what I could probably do is something like, where account, also isn't either of these two, because I have seen these 2 accounts before. But when it comes to just typing in KQL and making analytics rules, it's not difficult to filter out any sort of information that you don't really want showing up in your incidents. If we go to assets here, what you'll find is just the 3 user accounts again. So John Doe, um, eCorp DC, and then the AD Sync local account. Um, let's see, let's go back to attack story actually. And then what you'll see here is that really it's very, very detailed with how it provides said information. And another thing that I could do is actually tie like a MITRE attack um, tactic, technique, and procedure to this alert to give like a SOC analyst, for example, more insights as to what the current stage of the potential quote unquote attack is. But in this particular case, we're just logging in a unauthorized login event from an account that is a part of the domain. It's just not really an admin account. It really shouldn't have access. And really, the way that you would normally manage this is like going into your actually, I'm sorry, going into your domain settings and then making sure that you have proper security groups in place and that you're provisioning permissions properly, following the principle of least privilege and role-based access control. If you are implementing Azure into it as well, there are various things that you can do to kind of organize your permissions and make it to where only authorized personnel have access to XYZ assets. So other than that, let's see. There is an evidence tab here. I guess when it comes to evidence, the only thing that I really have set in place right now is just the analytics rule. But I believe in order to actually populate this evidence tab, what I would have to do is edit the like entity mappings and edit the analytics rule a little bit more. But that's also a skill that I am still trying to improve upon, I suppose I should say. Other than that, We have the activities tab here, which will just give you more information as to how this particular incident is being managed and the different changes that are going on for this incident. So as you can see, the tags were changed, and you've got the incident was all assigned to me based on the automation rule, and it'll even give you like performed by. So all of these were automated, as it'll tell you here. And then of course it'll also correlate all of the different alerts that this particular incident generated. So the way Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, I guess Microsoft Defender XDR works, specifically when it comes to incidents and alerts, is that an alert is a an incident is essentially a collection of alerts. An incident is one particular event that took place, but an alert is kind of like a subset of an incident in the sense that it falls under or is categorized by a particular incident. So in this case here, we've got multiple login attempts that hit that particular analytics rule. And so every instance of, whether it's malicious or not, login attempts for either of my domain controllers will be logged as an alert and not an incident. So, and to create another incident, what I would essentially have to do is go to the analytics rules, make another alert, type up another KQL query, and then type out the scheduling and whatnot, and then different alerts will fall under that incident depending on what the syntax is for the rule, if that makes sense. So, but outside of that, that's pretty much all I wanted to demonstrate for this particular video. Again, if you don't remember anything else, it's important to understand the difference between incidents and alerts, as well as how to actually create analytics rules, which really is just knowing how to, you know, type out KQL queries and really kind of figure out how you want to logic it all together and piece it all together so that you really pinpoint the data that you're trying to access, as well as pinpoint how that data should be interacted with, how it should be managed, and who should and shouldn't have access, and really just fine tuning your security posture and then turning that into a KQL query is really the gist of what an analytics rule is. But anyway, that's pretty much all I wanted to demonstrate. Um, Now, unfortunately, I'm at the point where my Sentinel trial is actually getting ready to be up. So honestly, from a Microsoft Sentinel standpoint, this may be the last video that I upload, but I mean, if I do come up with something else before the trial is over, then I may come in and record a few more videos. But I absolutely encourage you to look out for my future videos on the original home lab that I brought up, which is kind of just a general cybersecurity home lab where I have a domain controller, I have a couple of Windows hosts, I have a Kali Linux box and a Metasploitable VM, and I will be doing various things from a blue and red team perspective just to, demonstrate my skills as well as learn along the way. So, but anyways, I think I've said enough in this video. As usual, I appreciate anyone who decided to watch, and I will see you in the next one.